IVM.
Hey guys, even though Elon Musk is trying to turn everyone into robots, you'll be happy to know that very real human beings work at IVM Podcast, and some of them are even cool. How do I know? Well, listen to their own podcast, IVM Likes, where they recommend what they are listening to, watching, or reading. Catch IVM Likes every Monday on iTunes, Stitcher, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. And may I recommend the IVM Podcasts app.
Hey, what's up, muggles? It's the Geek Fruit Podcast in your ear holes. I've got with me Jishnu, and my name is Dinkar.
Hello.
Sup? Yeah, how do you like my intro?
Not bad.
Not bad? We'll give it a score on 10 jigs.
Okay.
The reason I called you, dear listeners, muggles, is because we're talking about Harry Potter this week.
7.
Like the number of books and not the number of movies in the Harry Potter franchise, which is what we're discussing. That's a segue.
Hey, plays are books too, man.
Actually, yes. And so are those... Do we also count those little textbooks? Fantastic Beasts, which is now its own...
How many are there?
Quintilogy. There's Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and there's the other one... Quidditch Through the Ages.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I
Two
totally
little
forgot that existed.
booklety things. Yeah, I
And
mean...
and they're not that little, are they?
They're pretty little. They're
Oh,
like...
are they?
Yeah, they're like
Oh,
100 and something pages.
It's great when the answer to your question, anything aren't they, is they are.
Yeah. Anyway, this is our sub-podcast within the podcast called Back to the Franchise, where we take a look back at some franchises that played their course while we weren't around to talk about them. So basically, we took a look back at the past and went like, wait, there were movies and we didn't talk about them?
Imagine if we had a podcast in 1999.
Yeah, it's an alternate timeline that we're creating here.
99? When did that first one come out?
Much like the third Harry Potter installment, we've created an alternate timeline.
When did that first one come out?
The first one?
The first movie. I was about... Oh, jeez. I would have been...
You were in school?
Yeah, I think I was about 13.
Probably, because it came
13,
out in
14.
2001.
I was about 12.
This was once Y2K panic had reduced, right? And everyone stopped making their emails things like jishnuG2000@hotmail.com. Was that an email of yours at any point?
No, it was Jishnu10 at Rediff.
Really?
Rediff?
Rediff? You were a Rediff boy?
I was a Rediff boy.
Were you ever a yahoo.co.uk person?
I was not. No.
I was a Hotmail kid. I was Dinkman72.
Dinkman?
Yeah.
Why has Dinkman gone away?
Why was it 72 even?
Look, I don't care. Why has Dinkman gone away?
Well, it's because an older friend of mine, I got my first email address when I was in 4th grade, I think. And this older friend of mine...
Wow.
Yeah,
well done.
I know. So, and it was because this kid, who was a couple of years older than us, told us about how you could set up an email address. And we were like, wow, cool, do it. And then he was like, cool, then I'll send you an email. And I was like, hell yeah. And then he was like, what do you want your email address to be? And I was like, I don't know, dinkar@hotmail.com. Apparently it was taken, even way back then.
Sure.
So... Hotmail suggested Dinkman72, and he went for it.
Okay, that clearly, it just jumped to 72. That's just nonsense.
I think it assumed people using email were at least born in 72, which I was not.
No, but I mean, like, I think normally it generated 10 for me. I've had Jishnu10 at Rediff, and I'm now still Jishnu10 at various other things. I have a bunch of email addresses, which all have 10 at them.
Oh, good save. Now people can't figure out your personal email address, because you said at other things.
At various other ones.
Oh, who knows? I can see someone furiously typing jishnu10@yahoo.co.uk and then having it bounce back.
I do have a .uk email address. I lived there for a bit. I have a UK address.
Was it at Yahoo?
No.
That would have been a uni thing. No, but you weren't in uni in the UK.
I was. But it's not a uni address.
Oh.
I had to have a UK address to get a UK busking license.
It had to be a .uk domain?
I had to prove, I'm doing air quotes here, that I was a resident of the UK, so I had to give like various random things, including a UK address.
Email address, of all things. I could come up with a UK email address today.
Yeah.
Well, that's some pretty lax security.
This was 2010. The world has changed significantly.
Well, yeah, because no one uses something like .uk anymore. Some people use .in, like our hit website, geekfruit.in.
Oh, fun. Well
and
done.
you can write into us at contactgeekfruit@gmail.com. Oh, no.
You took this, you just went, quit while you're ahead.
Listen, we have Geekfruit.in addresses, but we don't use them, so just use the Gmail. We're talking about Harry Potter jigs. Let's get back to the point.
What's the point?
the point is Harry Potter. Tell me about your introduction to the world of Harry Potter.
I was about 11.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was probably not
Did you start?
long at all before the movie came out.
Right.
I got wind of it when Goblet of Fire was just the biggest thing on the planet.
Oh.
Right? And this is, again, pre-internet. So the fact that a book was huge enough to, like, let 11-year-olds, be envious of the other 11-year-old that got a book is it's one hell of a feat when you think about it, right? So I've never been a big reader at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, really, I've read less than, like, 50 books for pleasure in my entire life.
In your life?
Yeah, probably.
What?
I'm not a reader.
Okay.
And I got wind of Goblet of Fire, and I was like, all right, this is a thing. So I went with my mom, and we saw that we went to the bookshop and saw that there were a hell of a lot more books besides Goblet of Fire. And I had to ask somebody, like, what are these other thingies? They're like, oh, it's a franchise, so you need to start at the beginning. And so I did.
Oh, you didn't know that it was a series at that
No,
point?
I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I picked up Philosopher's Stone, as
Yeah.
it is. And that's
So you
where it
picked up the
began.
Bloomsbury imprints, not the
Probably.
Scholastic ones.
Yes, that's right, yes. Yeah, so I started very, very innocently.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm not a big reader, it took me a while. My brother finished it in a night.
Mm-hmm.
I took my time
Wait,
with it.
which one did he finish in a night?
He finished, like, pretty much all of them.
What?
Like, he's a...
He's read more than 50 books?
He's a PhD. Literally, so yes.
Fair.
But, yeah, I took my time with it, and it was cool. And then I think...
Were you into it right away?
Yes, but I'll tell you this. I think this is a controversial thing for a lot of people. So I read 1, 2, and 3. I remember really enjoying 2 a lot. In fact, last night I was just, like, skimming through the movie of Part 2 just to remind myself of a couple of things. But yeah, so I really liked number 2. Number 1 was nice enough. 2 was really great. 3 was awesome. But number 4, I remember I had to restart that book at least 5 times.
Because it was...
It was daunting. Like, because I'm not a big reader, and it's like, a 500 page some nonsense.
It's a fat one.
It's a biggie, right? And it was a huge jump, because, like,
Yeah.
the first 2 were like 200 and something, 300 was the third one, and then it was like
Yeah. It's
700 or some ludicrous
not
amount.
7, yeah, but it was up there.
It
was
eventually
like-
got there, right?
Yes,
So the latter
yeah.
books are that
Yeah.
big. Any which way. So,
There was a lot of story to tell.
yeah. So, I mean, the 4th book was really great when I finished it, but I distinctly remember, like, getting stuck about halfway through, like, somewhere in the middle of probably right after the dragon fight happens in the first tournament. Somewhere around there, I distinctly recall, like, just fatigue of, like, oh, I can't read anymore. I'm just not able.
Oh, I was super excited about reading the 4th one because... So I got introduced to the books just before the 4th one came out, like maybe about a month before. I started reading on the 22nd of June in 2000, I think,
How
yes.
do you know that date?
There's actually a photograph of it.
Nice.
Not because I
That's
started
awesome.
reading the books
Oh.
at that point, but on...
Coincidentally and serendipitously, there is a book in the background.
So actually, it's me in the background. It's a completely different picture, and I noticed a while later...
And there's just a
that
book in your pocket sticking out.
I'm sitting right at the back in this picture, like barely seen, but I'm just like buried in the first book.
You know, this sounds like evidence used against you in a court of law. It's like, we have seen him at the scene of the crime, and they just find like a blurry old image of you, like in the background. Like, oh,
That is how it came up.
It's like a CCTV image,
it
you know,
was
like you're just like in the corner somewhere.
It's a picture from back in the day, so it's got a little date on it as
Yeah,
well.
exactly. That makes it
So it's
better.
perfect.
Oh, man.
But yes, that is my Potterversary, if that's a thing.
Have you noticed? Have you seen the new Instagram throwback filter that's doing this now?
That's adding like the dates
Yeah,
and the... whatnot?
everybody lately has been taking photos on October 28th, 1998.
Why?
Because that's what the filter says
Good
the year
Lord.
is.
It's like, so 20 years ago on the same date.
I guess so.
That's... Why? Why is that a thing? Why
Because
is it like,
there are 10-year-olds who are using Instagram that have never seen this and are thinking, oh, that's cute.
To them, it's ancient technology.
No, to them, no, it's not. To them, it's like, that's
it's
quaint.
It's retro.
It's not even, I'm sure a lot of them don't even know why it's there. They're just like, oh, it's just another filter. Like, why is the filter called New York? I don't know, it just is.
It's like the save icon, which is a floppy disk,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
no kid born after like the 90s knows what that is. They're like,
Pretty much.
hey, that little like boxy thing.
Yeah, you know the box with
Yeah.
the imperfect edge?
That's a save. That's a save icon, obviously. But yes, that's when I started reading. So I chugged through the first 3 books in like maybe 4 or 5 days. Literally over one weekend, I think, actually. I finished the first one.
Yeah.
And I was hooked straight away. So I'd heard about them for a while. And I remember everyone was really excited, especially like I was very much a reader. Like I was super friends with like the librarians and stuff. Is how much of a reader I was. So when these books came out, my librarians read it first, and like generally like while we had library library period, which was basically when everyone went there and like issued books, I would typically go finish a book during library period. And then like issue another one to take home, or like sometimes I'd just like sit and chat with the lady who'd tell me like what I should read next and stuff. So she was telling me about how her son was reading Harry Potter and like they were pretty good and stuff, and I should also check it out, and it's pretty fun. Then she's like, I don't know if you'll be interested, it's all like magic and stuff. I was like, sure, that sounds fun.
Right.
Though I never got to it after that until a friend of mine said, hey, I just bought the first 3 books. They're pretty cool, man. I've like read a bit of the first one. Do you want to borrow it? And I said, sure. And I borrowed it and I finished all of them and gave them back to him because I was that instantly hooked. And from that point on, like I was a fanboy. So I was waiting with bated breath for Goblet of Fire, which thankfully for me was coming out in a month.
Oh wow, well done.
Yeah.
Nice timing.
Yeah, exactly. It was perfect timing. And when we found out, I literally followed the news and you'd see all these like midnight lines and stuff. I went, I was in India at the time for holidays and we went and pre-registered at a bookstore to buy the first copy.
Nice. That's
which
awesome,
I
man.
forced my parents to do.
That's
awesome. I
awesome.
was super excited. That's how into it I was. And when I saw pictures of the first like release of the book and stuff and saw how thick it was, I was like, yes, that's what I need.
More book.
Yeah.
I want more of the book.
And then
That's
I read
awesome.
the
That's so
fourth
cool,
one
man.
and I was like, okay, not bad. You could clearly see like, I mean, it was great. I loved it. I loved the experience
but
of
you
it.
you felt
But I could
shift.
already start to tell, I could tell that I knew Azkaban was a better story straight away.
Ah, right. Yeah, likewise.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Something about just the beginning of it.
Yeah, because
I don't
from 4 onwards, it started to get a little self-indulgent. And also, after 4, my fandoms kind of started tapering off because Order of the Phoenix came out. Post which, I went to... there was a big gap. And among other things, I went off to college and stuff, where Harry Potter became less of a focus for whatever reason.
You mean for you personally?
For me personally.
Right, okay.
Yes.
But then did
So-
you read the last couple
Yeah,
with
of
as
course.
much like...
Yeah,
like
I
midnight,
mean-
stand in line kind of a thing?
Yes,
Okay, you
but
did.
in a way cooler way. Like, I read the 7th one the day it came out.
As in you were cooler because your mom wasn't there? Is that what you mean?
Slightly cooler.
Okay.
I mean, I'd still call her and tell her about it. But yeah, I read I read Deathly Hallows the day it came out, finished it by that morning, and then read it again the next day. Because I was super into how the story ended.
totally. I do recall that the 6th one, Half-Blood Prince. Yeah, Order of the Phoenix and Half-Blood Prince, I read over the course of like winter break, and because of the fact that we were at the time for like a stretch of about a decade or so, my family and I, we would go religiously every winter right around Christmas through the New Year to Calcutta, where my parents are from. My family's from there. And so we would just go there to visit the old folks. Literally, that was the only agenda. Like, I know 0 people there below the age of 65. And it's really boring. And so I had nothing to do. I was just in my grandparents' house for like anywhere from 7 to 10 days. And there were 2 winters that were made infinitely better because that happened to be around the release of book 5 and 6. And I had nothing else to do, and I was a bit better at reading at this point. I could read the big words, and so those books I tore through, and they were great. So I think for me personally, there's a big jump between 4 to 5, and then from 5 to 6.
A big jump meaning?
For the better.
Right.
I think 5 is infinitely better than 4,
Definitely,
and
yes.
6 is just as good, if not better.
6 is great. It's a turning point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then 7 was all right.
It
was good. It was, but
it's the final book. It was always going to be halfway.
I think that's always the case with the final chapter of anything. You've
Has
always
to
gotta,
be.
unless you're Breaking Bad, it's just gonna be.
Yeah, I think 6, even 5 for that matter, is really great. And the only reason they impacted me less, I think, is because of the time in my life when I read them, when basically there was other stuff going on.
Which one impacted you less?
5, 6, and 7.
Okay.
Because the first 4, I've literally read tons of times. I've read them all like at least 4 or 5 times at the least.
Fair.
5, 6, and 7, I've read maybe like twice each, which is way less. So... And also, a weird thing happened where after 4 came out and there was a giant gap for 5 to come out, I was super bored waiting for the thing to come out. So I started reading fan fiction for the first time in my life. I didn't even know it was a thing. and I discovered it, and the internet was new then. So your boy Dinkman72 went onto the lines and said, all right, let's check out fanfiction. And there's some weird stuff there.
This is pre-Pottermore.
This is pre-Pottermore, of course. Pottermore is like now.
Right.
This is back in the days of back in the days when Instagram filters was how the world actually looked. We didn't need filters.
Back when the world was sepia.
Yes, back when the world was sepia.
Oh, man.
And some fan fiction was really, really good. Like, spectacularly written.
Are you referring to Tejas's favorite Harry Potter erotica?
No, though I did read some of that and was super weirded out by it. Especially some of it also still very well written, but as a kid reading it, I was like, that's not correct. Don't do that.
That's not how werewolves do.
Yeah. Oh, there was some werewolf stuff.
Oh, Jesus.
But a lot of it, the typical fanfiction model, of course, is that it's the 5th year, but for no reason, suddenly an Indian exchange student walks into Hogwarts and goes like, hey, Harry, my name's Dinkar. Which is the author inserts themselves into the story kind of fanfiction.
Awesome.
A very popular subgenre.
And were they always in Gryffindor?
Of course.
Yeah.
Except sometimes they'd be a Slytherin because they're cool, but still be best friends with the main 3.
Sure.
But yeah, I got super into fanfiction. And then when Order of the Phoenix came out, I was like, you know what? Some of the fanfiction was pretty cool. So I started confusing the two.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a weird time. Anyway, so that's our story with the books. We're going to take a break. And let's come back and get into the movies, which are ostensibly what we should be focusing on. BTTF is about movies, right?
I get, that's for us to decide, isn't it?
I suppose we've decided because we've spent 20 minutes talking about the books. But when we come back, we'll talk about the movies.
Have you gotten yourself a gym membership and shown up only a few times? Are long working hours cutting your fitness goals short? How about you change things a little? Even a small effort can make a big difference. And I'll tell you how and what exactly. Hi guys, I'm Coach Urmi, and on the Kinetic Living podcast, you can look forward to some interesting stories of people who have changed the way they look at fitness after their kinetic journeys. Episodes out every Wednesday on the IVM app, website, and anywhere you get your podcast from.
Welcome back to the Geek Food podcast, on which welcome back to the franchise, on which welcome back to us talking about Harry Potter stuff, I suppose. We're in a bit of a wormhole of podcasts at this point, Jishnu.
This intro was a 6, your first one was a 7, I said.
I'm getting worse?
Yeah.
Oh, it's like the Harry Potter books then.
See what you did.
Yes, but let's move on from the Harry Potter books and to the movies. Tell us about the movies. What was your first exposure to them?
So here's the thing, right? So like I said, last night I was rewatching just a little bit of skim through Chamber of Secrets while passing out. And it's funny how certain movies that you've seen at a certain point in your life for whatever reason, certain things stick with you a lot stronger than they should for like no apparent reason.
Yeah.
I was able to, like, what's the word? I could say the lines along with the film a lot more than I should, because I haven't seen any of the movies more than twice at most. Most I've only seen once, because again, the movies, like, I hate to bring up that age-old, discussion of like, oh, the movie versus the film.
Yeah.
But the movies just don't do it for me, really. They're fine because the stories are great, so that's the only thing carrying them. But as a film, I don't think any of the films have like hit me like in any big emotional way. That being said, for whatever reason, I was able to like mouth along through most of Chamber of Secrets. Like,
they're imprinted in your memory.
There's certain lines that are just like engraved in my head, and like I just knew them. I was like, how is this happening? It's like 2 a.m. I am dead tired. I'm trying to go to sleep and I can't sleep, so I'm just watching this random movie because we're going to talk about this. I was
Star
like,
movies, of course.
Yeah, I was like, I guess I should like watch a little bit of this while trying to go to sleep, and I was able to like do it. I was like, why is this a thing? I don't care this much about the movie, but I love the story so much, I guess. Like, the stories are incredible.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, Chamber of Secrets, and I'm sure it's true about definitely Azkaban, maybe even Goblet of Fire. Because all those movies I saw around when did they come out? Teenage years, right?
Early teens it would have been.
Early teens, yeah. And
yes.
I guess, I mean, they were still like new enough that the spectacle was something, at the time. I don't think these movies are going to hold up 20 years from now.
Maybe not.
They're not going to be like...
They don't have to hold up 20 years from now because they'll be remade by then.
This is also true.
Yeah.
But, the stories will live on longer than the movie. Like in most cases, like if it's an original piece of work with a movie, everything about the movie has to carry the story. There are very few films where the story transcends the film itself. You know what I mean? Like, people will rarely reference a character arc or a story arc without the movie landing as well.
Right.
Because usually if the movie sucks but you had a great idea in it, it doesn't matter because the movie sucked and that's what people are going to talk about, right? But in this case, because it's a book, which is the case with most things that are adapted, if the story is good enough, people will forgive a shitty attempt at it.
Fair.
Like The Hobbit, for example, right? Like the first movie is not bad. I really like it. It's not bad, but then definitely gets progressively worse. But that's not going to be to the detriment of Tolkien.
Yes.
Like, his work is going to live on beyond, despite the fact that they made a crappy movie.
Yeah.
So, with these movies, just for some lol reason in my brain, I remember random bits of it really, really well, even though it didn't really land for me emotionally. But I think it's a testament to a really
how good the stories are?
a great writer.
I would agree, but I do think the movies are... So they're not cinematic masterpieces. Let's get that out of the way for sure.
Yeah.
But I too can quote most of them from memory. And that's also because they had such a big cultural impact, especially, I think, the movies. Well, the books certainly did. And that was already amazing because nobody was reading books at that time, right? Books weren't a big thing. They weren't always like blockbusters like Harry Potter was. It was a game changer how much of a cultural phenomenon Harry Potter was as a book.
Right.
And then when it became a movie, first off, it became a movie fairly quickly. Like, the first book came out in the mid-90s or later 90s?
I could be wrong. I think it came out between book 4 and 5 or book 5 and 6.
Yes, I think
Somewhere
so.
in there, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think the minute Goblet of Fire exploded and people were like, 11-year-olds are lining up for a 600-page, 400-page, whatever page book.
Yeah.
That's insane. We need to capitalize on
this book.
Yeah, we need to make a movie out of this.
And that's when, and I think what they did really well was, so now, considering the fact that you have that many teenage and a lot of adults, let's face it, expectations on you, because, do you know Bloomsbury had a special imprint of the Harry Potter books where the covers were very serious? Just so adults could read them on like public transport and stuff, because people used to read books in public back then. But yeah, they had like the typical Bloomsbury one is the super cartoony thing. The Scholastic ones are the green themed ones.
Yes.
And there's the Bloomsbury
skinny one, like the character, just a random aside, the characters in the Scholastic one, like the way Harry looks in that, he looks like malnourished.
Yeah, exactly. He's all like pointy and stuff.
It's weird. Like, what happened to this guy?
And and I remember I had to buy the Scholastic edition of Order of the Phoenix and I was super bummed because everything else I had was Bloomsbury. And it's like, this is ruining the look of my collection. So I went and bought Bloomsbury one later. Anyway, there was also an adult version. So what I'm saying, to get back to my original point, is that there was a lot of expectation on this movie. I remember, like, again, in the time of mass media, how much of a cultural phenomenon it was just when the auditions were happening and when they found Daniel Radcliffe and they announced, these are the three guys. It was massive. Everyone was like, who are these kids? They're going to be...
I remember it was such a big thing on the internet, quote unquote, if you can call it that at the time. That before news feeds were a thing, somehow I remember reading on a website, Dinkar.
Oh my God.
On a website when I was 12 years old or whatever the hell. I was reading a website about news, about casting for a movie.
I know.
What the hell was that? In 2001. I was looking at a website. Do you realize how strange that sounds?
That is quite insane. Here's what's stranger.
Websites weren't a thing.
It's 20 years later and you're still doing the same stuff, Jigs.
This is true, but it was a website.
I know, it's insane. And like Potter fan sites, like Alohomora.com.
Right, I remember that. I don't know why I do, but I do.
Because it was a thing.
It was a website.
Yes.
And I was able to say the word website and I felt so cool about it.
The Potter Lexicon was a great one, which started just as a place that would define Potter terms for you, a Harry Potter dictionary, and eventually went like, screw it, everyone's coming here anyway, we're going to talk like news now. There was a lot. Potter Web, of course, until, of course, they started Pottermore, which was their own thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, websites were a thing back then. You didn't...
No, they weren't. That's the thing. These made them things.
These made them things.
These made them things.
Yeah.
Like literally conversations at short break and lunch break the following day would be like, oh, what did you do yesterday? Oh, I was playing on my Sega. I was playing Sonic. What did you do? I was looking at a website. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Dude. You have internet or what? Yeah, man. 56 KB.
Yeah. And like I was downloading this demo of a game, but then my dad picked up the phone, so... so I had to start downloading it again. Oh man. You know that moment where you'd have a dial-up modem and pick up the phone to try and make a call and just be like...
Yeah, it's the same feeling of when you're trying to download U2's The Sweetest Thing, but it turns out to be Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven instead.
I know. Or those LimeWire files which would be labeled like U2, REM, Pearl Jam, Led Zeppelin, - the sweetest thing. And I'm like, what? They all did a version together?
That would be the sweetest thing. Oh no, it's Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah. Or you download it and goes like, tang, 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 ding, ding. And you're like,
we can't pay royalties, bro.
No, we can't.
Okay.
We're already in deep trouble.
Yeah.
To get back to Harry Potter, this is how big the cultural impact was of the fact that the movies were being made at all, right? So there was a ridiculous amount of expectation on everything about these movies, from who the kids were to the fact that it was Chris Columbus, J.K. Rowling was involved, and they were setting the look for something that was iconic and also just in people's heads.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't use the illustrations as any kind of benchmark because they were ridiculous.
Nonsense. Yeah.
And even so now, when you talk about Harry Potter and people try and picture Harry Potter, they go to the movies. So I think the movies did a great job of kind of just the very fact that they didn't piss off people to a ridiculous extent
is
a spectacular achievement.
That is very true. The fact that nobody out and right protested about it, nobody talked about it like the prequels. The fact that didn't happen is a humongous feat. You're absolutely right. But that is, I think, kudos more just to set designers and art directors.
It actually is.
Not too much. I wouldn't give too much credit to Columbus.
No. In fact, I have some issues with him.
Yeah, I do have issues with him. Yeah. But I think the point is that I think people are looking at the films for references now simply because of lack of options.
Maybe.
That is all you have. There is no other, and there's plenty. It's out there, and it's the biggest thing that I think the films had on their side, which is why it's still watchable for me today, is simply because even though it's not executed the best, the cast is nonsense.
I think that might be the best thing Chris Columbus did. He found, so when those three were announced and we read about it on websites, I remember thinking, man, these freaking lucky kids, they're set for life.
Right.
And here we are decades later, and they are definitely set for life. But also, they've earned it, man. They're just great people.
Well, here's the thing. So when I say the cast, I mean all the supporting characters. So when I was watching it again, so looking at...
You mean the who's who of British
absolutely,
cinema?
Right, absolutely. So when watching it again, especially the first couple of films before the three of them sort of grow up and actually know what they're doing. Yeah. The one thought that occurred to me was, well, obviously I'm going to paraphrase along with all the one-liners that, frickin' Kenneth Branagh has and, Alan Rickman, these guys that are such brilliant Shakespearean orators. Yeah. If you give them all of 50 lines in a film, they're going to make those 50 lines count. And they really do, so...
They saw that great scenery and they were like, let's chew this.
Yeah, absolutely, right? And so they knew they didn't have much to work with, but because they are as good as they are, they made that count. Even though the line doesn't matter all that much, it's ingrained into the heads of millions of kids all over the world, right?
Yeah.
But that being said, the lead characters, because they are 10 and 11-year-olds, they can only be so good, right? There's only the 1% in the world that'll be a 10-year-old brilliant actor. That doesn't happen every day, and I don't think it happened with these three.
It did not. They were not good.
Yeah. But that being said, slight aside, can you think of an example where a movie or a TV show has really landed when it's in the hands of kid actors? Besides Stranger Things, I'm coming up short at the thought of any other movie where I am perfectly happy watching a 10-year-old for the following 60 minutes or 90 minutes or whatever long.
Well, no, that's not completely true. Maybe not an extensive franchise like Harry Potter, but I mean stuff like Stand By Me, The Wonder Years.
Well done.
Children.
Yeah.
And some great kids. Fred Savage is still killing it.
Well done.
So it's possible. But
it is, yeah. But it's a Hail Mary if you have to try it. And unfortunately, I don't think it worked at all.
I think it's rarer for child actors to have sustainable careers. For them to progressively get better doesn't always happen. Another Chris Columbus discovery, Macaulay Culkin, is now he's just a weirdo who does totally. Cool stuff. He's great. I was listening to an extensive interview with him on WTF, and he sounds like the most comfortable guy in the world. He's just I don't feel like doing acting stuff, so sometimes I do art and sometimes I do my band, and I don't have to do anything else, honestly.
Have
so
you seen
why
him on
would
Joe Rogan?
No.
Oh, he's great. I'm sure.
What a chiller of a dude. But he chose not to go further, right? Whereas at the least Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson have decided to they've grown along with us, kind of like how the books grew with us, which was a big part of what J.K. Rowling did, right? The fact that the books got progressively darker, kind of more intense. So especially for us kids who were reading them when we were in our early teens, it felt like a progression. So when you were 14 and reading Goblet of Fire, it felt like, whoa, they're dating people and I could be dating people. And then when you're 15, you're like, oh, they're having trouble dating people.
I can find my Parvati Patil.
Yeah.
What's the
Representation.
what's the other one's name?
Padma. Padma and Parvati.
Yeah. But no, yeah. So what basically my point was that it's just that the three, unfortunately, up until about movie 5, just didn't have the chops to keep up when you're seeing them right side by side with the legends of British cinema.
True. I mean,
how are you going to compare? I'm sorry, buddy, but you're not going to hold a stone to these people.
I thought they were pretty good in the third one in Azkaban. Azkaban, let's get this out of the way straight away, is hands down the best movie of the lot.
Yes.
Also,
movie, I don't know. It's been so long at this point.
I
don't really have a strong enough opinion on any of the films just because they didn't land for me. And I haven't gone back to them.
Okay, cool. We'll dive deeper into the franchise, but let me just give you a quick recap of why Azkaban is the greatest. Because after the first two, which were hit or miss, the first one was great because it was the first one. Great as in, like, we're talking in terms of just the Harry Potter canon at this point. But the first one was good. The second one was clearly diminishing returns, and we're like, okay, there's some issues here. The third one was a game changer, in terms of the tone.
Yes.
Yeah, suddenly it was like slightly darker.
Because the book was also.
Exactly. It introduced David Thewlis as Lupin, who was great. It introduced, what's his name as Sirius Black?
Gary,
who was killing it. It had like such a zippy feel to it. Right? It was a way faster movie than anything else.
It was.
And a lot of what became the iconic look later also was set here. Like the fact that they'd be dressed in muggle clothes when they weren't in school. That was a Alfonso Cuarón thing.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. So even in the books, they always said they'd be in robes everywhere. Alfonso was like, these kids, like, it's the early 2000s. Why would they be... And it was the early 2000s. It was like, why would they wear robes outside? They should dress in muggle clothes because they're chilling.
Yeah.
And he did that. And that became like the iconic look. Plus, the ending, great. Again, like with the whole time turner bit.
Yeah, but that's the story more.
It is... Oh, yeah, okay, fair. It is the story. But because of these reasons, I feel like 3 was a market departure.
I agree. Yes, it was far better. I can't really give you an opinion on my favorite because I don't honestly care enough.
Okay.
But yes, everything you said is true.
Is true. All right. Cool. We're going to take a quick break and come back and talk more of the Harry Potters and what impact it's having on our lives today.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another week on IVM Podcast. It's been a great week. If you're not following us on social media, please make sure you do. Also, please make sure that you do tell a friend about a podcast. We really are trying to grow the audience, and the more people who you tell, the better off we all are. On Cyrus Says this week, Cyrus talks to popular TV and theatre actor Ritasha Rathore. Ritasha talks about Sex Rated, a recent Vice documentary that she hosted. On the Pragati podcast, Pawan and Hamsani are joined by author and journalist James Crabtree. They discuss his experience of being a foreign correspondent in India and how to understand cronyism in Indian policymaking. On the Scene and the Unseen, Amit Verma is joined by Srinath Raghavan, a former infantry officer in the Indian Army. He's a senior fellow at the Center for Policy Research, and they discuss the history of U.S. involvement in the South Asian region. On the Rediscovery Project, Ambika and Hoshna rediscover Mumbai this time. They talk about their visits to Elephanta Caves, Dharavi, and Bhau Lad Museum. On the Geek Fruit podcast, leading up to the release of the second installment of the Fantastic Beasts franchise, Dinkar and Jishnu revisit their origin stories of the Potterverse. And with that, let's continue on with your show.
Welcome back to the Geek Fruit Podcast. We are discussing the Harry Potter books and films, so right now we're knee-deep in the films. And we were just discussing how the supporting cast is all royalty in the British Thespians Society, if such a thing exists.
That was a 6.5 because it was very long.
Yeah.
You used about 50 words.
Yeah. I am clawing my way back up, though. And I got a thespian in there.
Oh, no. I like the words
That's
you used.
where the 0.5.
I'm just saying it's like a few too many, but it's fine.
Do you think our trio of young actors turned out so well because they were surrounded by all these like wise
If
old
not,
greats?
like if they didn't milk that, I think I've seen interviews of where Radcliffe mentioned, getting coaching tips and lessons from Oldman.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't you?
And they got significantly... I mean, Radcliffe in particular has gone on to be a fine young gentleman.
Absolutely. No? Like, he has so much... he has a lot of street cred as far as I'm concerned. Because apparently, before he discovered, the stage and that became like his thing, which I think it's safe to say that's his thing now, right? Like
it is his thing now.
He's more of a stage actor than he is a film actor at this point. Or he's trying to be more of a stage actor.
He's doing a play as we speak.
Right.
Anatomy of a Fact.
Yes. Before that happened, I remember, again... in nascent internet years, there was a time when he was playing bass And he was
Yes.
really into the Arctic Monkeys and stuff. And I was like, what the hell?
Yeah, he got super into music. I
Yeah,
remember
I was
reading
like,
interviews
that's-
of his in the
I'm
run-up
okay
to-
with that.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
got, and he did it right. He went into like super old music first, so he was like really into the Stones at one point. And then he was like, I used to be a Stones guy and now I'm moving towards being a Beatles guy. Then he went into, like, basically, solid kid.
Great, man.
And I
Good
mean, when you look at him now, again, as a fine young gentleman, and realize that he went through like a pretty serious bout of alcoholism and stuff while he was shooting the movies, I'm like, when did this kid have this much time to live this much of a life?
I forgot about that.
Yeah, he was pretty bad.
When was that? What movie was that?
I think it was around the time of 6 and 7.
That makes sense.
Yeah, like he'd be showing up to set drunk and stuff, and then he cleaned himself up.
That
And
makes
he's
sense.
still only like, what, 28, 29,
Yeah.
30?
Yeah.
It's well done, man. And
He's lived a life.
he's lived a life.
He really lived a life.
And we are doing the same thing we did when we were 13.
Just sitting here looking at websites and reading them aloud.
Yeah. But yes, so do you have any particular rankings of the Harry Potter movies? Because honestly, I don't.
Like I said, I don't. Like, I don't.
Right? They
okay,
kind
here-
of blend together
Let me
after
ask
a
you
point.
this.
I know 3 is definitely great. I think possibly after that, just for like memory's sake for me, is 1. And the rest of them, I kind of put them on the same pedestal.
Okay,
They're all fine.
I think I have an amended question, which I think might be a bit more interesting, which is rather than trying to rank these movies, I think, tell me which movie shapes your perception of the world the most. Because I think it's safe to say, for everybody and their mom, when you think of Harry Potter and how good Harry Potter is, if you like it at all, which I think is most people, the books, by far, are what you're remembering for the awesomeness.
Yes.
If it was just pick any one movie at random versus pick any one book at random, the book is always going to win. Like, I don't
Fair.
think there's
Yeah,
any
absolutely.
argument against it. But to its credit, maybe it's a Chris Columbus thing, or maybe it's just a general amazing set design work. The vivid imagery of the first 2 movies, before things got dark, are actually what I think of visually, consistently, more so than anything else. Because as brilliant as J.K. Rowling's writing is, again, when looking back at that second movie from last night, what I was remembering was that her storytelling is great because she's just amazing at the detail, right? Like,
Yeah.
all she's talking about is, the 3 of them are walking down the hallway and they're just talking about whatever the hell they're talking about, which is the same type of shot that you see a million times in from everything from The West Wing to House to
Yeah.
every movie in between. There's always the walking
The
down the
walk and
hallway.
talk.
Yeah, the walk and talk thing, right? Now, usually a walk and talk, as a very random example of a thing, is pretty boring because there's nothing to it. It's just 3 people that they're walking. Why? Because we have to give them something to do. But when J.K. Rowling writes a walk and talk, she's going to tell you every little detail about the picture frames moving, the picture frames listening to you,
Yeah.
Argus Filch creeping in the corner, there's a cat walking by, and like, was a cat petrified or not, we don't know. There's, like this, the amount of detail she's got is amazing. But the first few movies, all they did really was just like dumb down the scenes to like the 5 key lines of dialogue that get the point across.
Yeah.
And then the rest is just in the beauty of looking at the setting.
Yeah, and it's the little details that she picks out that work so well.
Right, yeah. And so, like, I
Yeah.
think the script or the screenwriting and from those first couple of films just honed in on, all right, we just have to get this look. Get the look right, put the kids in the room, let the kids say, Harry, what is that? Oh no, it's a petrified cat. Why is the cat petrified? I think because of the Chamber of Secrets is open. What's the Chamber of Secrets? We don't know. Let's ask Dumbledore. Okay, bye. That's all they say. But in that 30 seconds, you're looking at a lot of really cool shit,
Yeah.
which is executed really well. So I would have to say, as much as I don't, quote unquote, don't care that much about the films, the first few movies, which I think are arguably the worst, are the ones that
Are
still
the ones that imprint
that still
themselves.
shape
Yeah.
it in me,
Ditto. I think the first 3 are unmatched in that regard. Like, they set the look for Harry Potter in my mind in a lot of ways that even though I was a big fan of the books first and still think they're way better, you can't shake some things that the movies added to Harry Potter that are pretty much just part of the canon now, even though they were always a separate thing. And even when they reboot them, eventually, when the reboot comes, people are going to be annoyed that stuff from the movies isn't included.
Like what?
I don't know, whatever
What
it
are they
might be.
waiting for?
Like, maybe, like, if they redesign the robes drastically, people will be like, this
Yeah.
is not my Harry Potter.
Not my robe.
Yeah, not my robe. So, who knows? I think... Did I ever tell you the story of how I watched the first one?
No.
I watched it solitary in a theatre that was deserted.
Really?
Yes, because I was obviously super excited about the movie. I was super clued into all the news about it because I would read the newspaper.
How old
and
were you?
go to
You would have been
websites.
like 11, right? 11 or 12.
2001 it came out. I was 13.
Oh, so you could go to a UA movie
Was
By
it
yourself?
a UA movie? I'm sure
No,
it was a U
probably.
movie.
It's a U movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think book 4 got UA, maybe.
Yes,
Yeah.
probably. But so the movie's about to come out. I cannot contain my excitement. All my friends are super into it. We all decide we're going to go to this one place and watch it the day off.
And they decided to pull a prank on you.
No, a week before, I got chickenpox.
Oh, fun.
For the first time in my life. And thankfully, so far, the only time.
Huh.
But yes, could not leave the house for a solid 2 weeks at least. I think 3. And when I got out into society eventually, everyone had seen the movie.
Oh, no.
Some of them twice. And I was like, well, screw it. So the first day, I was good to go back to society. I was supposed to start school the next day. I was like, Mom, I'm going for this movie. And I left. And there was no discussion of sure, go for a movie alone. You've never done that. I was just
Right.
just me. Literally no one. I walked to a theatre near my house, walked in, said one ticket for Harry Potter, please. And then I walked in and watched the movie alone. And it was glorious.
I'm sure it was. Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I distinctly remember the entire thing. I remember the walk up till there. I remember being super excited when I got the ticket and then watching the movie.
That's awesome.
And that's what the cultural impact of that first one was. So I can't shake that. I don't think anybody who saw it when it came out can.
It was a sight to behold. I think I missed the Lord of the Rings train, right? Because I've just never read the book. So I was very excited when it came out because I'd heard so much about it and it looked really cool and the trailer was amazing and all that fun stuff. But I remember, obviously, I think Harry Potter was the first genuine book-to-screen adaptation where I came in prepared. And,
I
felt
knew
that.
what you were...
I knew what I was getting into and knew what that felt like of overanalyzing the micro details.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're that Harry wouldn't do that.
That's such a Ron thing to say.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Yeah. Anyway.
Which, by the way, where is Ron nowadays? I mean, Emma's doing fine, Daniel's doing fine, but where's our boy, what's his name? Shit, I forgot his name.
The Grint.
Rupert, yes.
The Grint who stole Ron.
He's stealing Christmas. And weirdly enough, he was the first one to act in a movie other than Harry Potter. He was a part of some
Right,
random
I forgot
team
about that.
thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's get to the current fortunes of the Harry Potter universe,
Yeah,
which is
okay.
that it's been revived, obviously, for Fantastic Beasts. What are your opinions on that? We've spoken about it somewhat before.
I am excited.
Mm-hmm.
And I've
How
got
do you like the first one? We've discussed it on this very podcast.
I did like it, but I don't have any intention to rewatch it. Much like with
yeah.
any of the other movies so far. But that being said, I'm still in it because the thing about Harry Potter, right? I've said this when we reviewed the play that came out. I remember, if I recall, from
the child what had been cursed.
Yeah. I think I recall, if I remember correctly, when we did that episode, I liked it a lot more than the two of you, I think. I think I enjoyed reading that a lot more.
Yeah, you did.
Even though I'm the least fanboy amongst the three of us of the Harry Potter world, because I do really like it, the universe, when I'm in it. But it's not a universe I keep coming back to. I'm constantly thinking about the Marvel universe. I'm constantly thinking about the Star Wars universe. But I'm not ever thinking about Harry Potter. But when I'm in it, I'm enraptured.
Right.
And the play being a literary thingy of Harry Potter and reading it and imagining it in my head, it'd been so long since I've read the books and imagined Harry Potter in my head as opposed to seeing Radcliffe and company. I probably enjoyed watching the Fantastic Beasts movie more just because of the fact that it's adults and it's not the same faces again for the 9th time or whatever.
Yeah.
So to that end, I'm excited now to see the second one because again, it's going to be new faces and that means revisiting the universe I love without the weight of it's these guys again.
Exactly.
Because I don't love those guys enough. When I see Luke Skywalker again, I'm like, yes, there's my boy. But when I see Daniel Radcliffe again, I'm not going, yes, there's my boy. I'm just like, oh, okay, it's Radcliffe.
You're like, hey, it's the star of Broadway's Anatomy of a Fact.
Right. So I'm excited to see, what the second one has. I'm sure I'm going to enjoy it, but it's not something I'm constantly thinking about.
Yeah. Well, yes, but I feel like it has a lot of potential for the same reasons that you're saying. When we saw Fantastic Beasts the first time, we went in with zero expectations for sure. I definitely did. I was like, because I'd read the little booklet thingy, which is completely different, based on
isn't it genuinely just a listicle?
Essentially, yeah. It's written under the guise of being a textbook that these guys study. So it's got no story to speak of. It's got...
Just here are things, read them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, the conceit of saying, here's a movie, and by the way, there's a bunch of animals in it, is weird. But after the first one, you realize that the weirdest thing about the movie is the title. It's not really Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. It's just, it might as well just have been Harry Potter, the prequels.
Sure.
Which at this point they're becoming, with Dumbledore and Grindelwald coming in. And I really like how fresh they seem, and the fact that they're polished like right out of the gate.
Yeah.
So there's no warm-up, there's no like, all right, let these kids grow into their roles and kind of figure out how to do it. It's a
Just
good
hit the
movie.
ground running.
Right out of the bat. So I feel like there's a lot of potential there.
It's a solid like heist movie.
Essentially, yeah. And they seem to be going in so many directions with it, right? Like now, essentially, the second one is about Grindelwald and Dumbledore, which is a story that has been teased before.
Yeah.
Particularly towards the end of the actual Harry Potter books and movies. And, I mean, obviously, we are kind of coming up against the same issue now, which is expectations.
Always.
Like, as soon as Jude Law was cast as the young Dumbledore, people were like, really?
Yeah.
And they weren't entirely sure, which I think is not a bad idea.
I'm excited to see him.
Yeah, he's a cool dude.
I'm excited
and
to
he
see
can
that.
do good stuff.
Yeah.
In fact,
I'm excited because of how random it sounds.
Yeah. I had my issues with Dumbledore in the movies, in fact. Like, I thought...
likewise.
Yeah, the entire cast was perfect, except both the Dumbledores. I had issues with both of them.
Yeah. Because he kind of functions exactly as Gandalf does.
Yes.
He's the wise wizard that shows up out of the blue and just says everything really slowly with a lot of like gravitas and skepticism about everything that's being told to him because he knows better because he's the all-knowing, all-powerful, almighty.
Yeah.
But Gandalf makes it land. Somehow, like whenever Gandalf like shows us stuff, you're like, oh damn, okay, I get it.
I think also because the role was like that. And
yes,
like
true.
Dumbledore was always written as like a mischievous kind of dude.
He's like, okay, I guess he's more like Yoda than Gandalf.
Exactly.
You never see Yoda do his thing. Yet, however, Yoda the puppet lands the second I see him, but Dumbledore never did.
I think because both those actors, Richard Harris and Michael Gambon, both kind of played the role in a very gravitas-y way, possibly because Gandalf was already such a thing.
Yeah.
They kind of took it in the same direction, and also they're just actors like that. They can't help but speak in a very gravitas-y way. And Dumbledore was really, to me, always like a goofy, twinkly-eyed dude who was also wise.
Right.
And I feel like they never quite nailed that, which is odd because literally everyone else was perfect. Like Maggie Smith is McGonagall.
So,
Mr. Potter.
Speaking of Maggie Smith and Richard Harris was the first one?
Yes.
Yeah. So again, if you look at the scene where Harry first goes to Dumbledore's office in Chamber of Secrets, McGonagall catches him not sort of quote unquote in the middle of the act when like another one of the petrifications have happened, and she's like, "Come with me, Potter. This is out of my hands." And he's like, "No, I swear I didn't do it." She's like, "No, come with me." And so she takes him to Dumbledore's office, and she doesn't say much. Again, this scene is a big moment because it's like the first meeting of wise old Dumbledore in his element. You're like, holy crap, well, this could be like anything. We never know. Like, his office has a phoenix in front of it and all that. Like, it's so mysterious and epic. All that Maggie Smith says is, "You're coming with me." And then she goes to the thing and like, "Sherbet lemon." And that's it.
Yeah.
And it worked. Somehow, like that stupid dialogue, it works.
Yeah.
Richard Harris comes on screen and he's like, "Oh, phoenixes. They have healing properties in their tears, and they can carry heavy weights. Now, tell me things, Potter." He's like, "I don't want to tell you anything." "Are you sure you have nothing to tell me?" He's like, "No, I swear." He's like, "Okay, bye." And that's it. So he tells you the plot line for how the final victory is going to happen.
Yeah.
With the Phoenix coming to rescue you by healing you and by carrying a giant sword. And I know things. Are you sure you don't want to tell me things? Because I'm on your side. 5 minutes later, exact same situation where he's in the book. He's reading the diary. He gets transported into the past, and he looks at Tom Riddle meeting Dumbledore right when there's been a death because of Aragog.
Right.
Because Hagrid's pet has like run amok.
Has run amok, yeah.
So Dumbledore's now confronting Riddle. Right, and this is a younger Richard Harris, right, playing a younger Dumbledore. Sorry, Richard Harris playing a younger Dumbledore, and he's having a conversation with Riddle, and he says, "Tom, what's up?" And Tom's like, I don't know anything." He's like, "Why are you here?" He's like, "I don't know anything." "Are you sure there's nothing you want to tell me?" He's like, "No, I swear." And Harry's looking at him, he's like, "Wow, I said the same thing." And that's it. And so it's like, it's this tension that they try to build of this guy. He says very few things that will have all the payoff in the end because he's Dumbledore and everything he says matters. But he doesn't present anything directly to you. He just gives you that vibe of, "You sure you don't want to tell me things? You sure you don't want to confide in me? I think you should."
Doesn't quite get there, no?
Like, so he's trying to play that playful thing.
Yeah.
But it's just not.
I know. And I'll tell you one even smaller moment that kind of typified that for me. I think at the end of the first one, perhaps, which is when Harry is in the infirmary. And Dumbledore is giving him like the end of the book speech, and they have this like long chat. And then Harry's having one of Bertie Bott's every flavor beans, and Dumbledore looks at him and he's like, "I always have the worst luck with these flavors. Shall I try one?" And Harry's like, "Sure." And he tries one, and he goes like, "Alas, earwax." And he plays it with such he sounds like he's really bemoaning the fact that he got earwax when it's obviously supposed to be a joke, like, earwax, but he does it like, "Alas, earwax." I'm like, it's not actually that emotional, Richard, calm down.
I think he needs a Richard Harris needed a shot of like Harrison Ford in there. He needed a shot of like grumpy. He needed a shot of like just a little bit of like curmudgeon-y.
Yeah,
a bit of curmudgeon would have gone a long way.
Maybe.
Like Alan Rickman was brilliant because Alan Rickman had resentment in him the entire time through.
Yeah.
Because Snape is resentful, but he also knows what he's doing is, it's for the part of the plan and for the greater good and all that. But he's begrudgingly playing the spy.
Yes, true.
And so every scene you see Alan Rickman and he's got this he's like a sour taste in his mouth. He's just like, "Oh, God damn it,
Mr. Potter.
I have to freaking do this." He's like, I'm gonna push you as far as I can without breaking you, because I know if I break you, then I'm breaking the rules. But I'm gonna have some fun with this, boy. If I'm gonna deal with you for the rest of my life and be your protector and like watch over you, even though I don't want to, and I loved your mother and all that like horrible history that I have, if I have this shitty job, I'm gonna milk it. And I'm gonna get at least whatever little joy I can with it, which is revenge against your dad, so I'm going to bully you. So, like, that lands if you rewatch
right
the movies.
From the start,
Yeah, if you rewatch the films knowing what you know about Snape. Should I say spoiler alert?
It's too late.
We've crossed that bridge.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you rewatch the movies and you look at Snape from day one, he's consistent, and it works. Unfortunately, Dumbledore also stays consistent, but I don't think he ever... warrants the way it's delivered.
And when Michael Gambon came on, he kind of just took up exactly where Richard Harris left off. And they're both absolutely fine ways of performing that role.
Yeah.
It just
they're
didn't
just
quite
safe,
land.
They're safe and they don't... I don't know. They're not worth it.
And I mean, And once you actually start to delve into these movies somewhat, there's a lot that you can pick apart like this.
Oh, that's so much.
Yeah, but still, it's a franchise that has clearly had a long-lasting impact on us to this day.
And it will continue.
So we are recording this episode because of the fact that it still exists, and Fantastic Beasts 2 is coming out literally in a week or so. And we're excited for that, and we will be talking about it in full on a future episode.
So, hooray.
Hooray for that. But that's it for this episode. We've maybe scratched the surface of a fairly extensive franchise that we've already spoken about. There's a lot to unpack here. So write into us, share your thoughts on the Harry Potterverse, what you think of the movies and the books and the relationship they have vis-a-vis each other. But until then, just say hi once in a while. You can reach out to us at Geekfruit HQ on all the socials and contact geekfruit@gmail.com. You can also write into dinkman72@hotmail.com. It might bounce back, but if it doesn't, I will try and find that email address and I will respond to you.
Jishnu10@rediff.com.
Stay safe, you nerds.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are about to listen to attempt number 15 to record the promo for the podcast Vartalab.
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 All day, all night, Vartalab.
Oh yeah. It's a really nice podcast, guys. It's with me and Naveen, and it has really nice stories.
Yeah, people come tell their stories, ups and downs, fun times. We all cry at the end. It's like a Karan Joy movie, but in 1 hour or less.
Yay.
Yeah, every Monday. Yeah.
It's got humans.
Hi, my name is Anupam Gupta. I'm B50 on Twitter. I am the host of Paisa Vaisa, the show that talks money. On my show, I speak to experts from every field of money and finance, from stock markets, equities, debt funds, credit cards, life insurance, every possible area of money and finance that you can think of. We even did an episode on cryptocurrency. I've got fantastic guests from mutual funds to personal finance experts everywhere. Robo-advisory, startups, just name it, we've got it. At Paisa Vaisa, we help you make smart decisions about money. You work hard for money. Now make your money work hard for you. New episodes out every Monday, and you can listen to my show on the IVM Podcast app or any other podcasting app that you have.